Alrighty, I think this is episode number 9. I think last time I said 7, and then when I was editing, I saw it was number 8. So I'm pretty sure this one is number 9. And most of the time, I'm pretty good at making these introductions. But I think I'm gonna let you share what are the main topics we talked about and what can they expect. Because honestly, my mind has been blown. This was also the conversation where I feel like I've talked the least. Not because I didn't know what to talk about, but just because I was absorbing so much information, talking about, how to, we talked about money,
Yep.
we talked about somatics and trauma healing,
Yep.
we talked about how to live an aligned life,
Yep.
we talked about how to be of service to others, how to, get into a state of flow and, create a more fertile ground for yourself and how it can also apply to business.
Yes.
A very unorthodox way of doing business. And honestly, I mean, we have been, definitely been doing some stuff with each other, co-creating the, some potential projects, the workshops. And I've never seen any approach so similar to yours and yet so it's so enriching in a way, so aligned, so everything. But is there anything else we touched on?
I think you nailed it. I just recap again. We talked a lot about relationship to money and how to expand your awareness to money and how it's really a somatic experience and how our past traumas around money will dictate our current behaviors and what's actually showing up in our life. We talked about, I'm going to call it heart-based creation business, creating business from a place of peace rather than from our mind or the addiction to the visions that we have. But what's wanting to come forth from me right now and tending to that and letting it grow organically. We talked about what it really is to make a difference in someone's life, what it is to be of service, and how that can create an eternally fulfilling life. And I mean, there was many other little segues that it took. The highs and lows of entrepreneurship. It's just so many rich things in this experience.
And so if you're curious to know who the hell even is Jeremiah, part of being one of the most iconic people to go through Karisma, he has built multiple multi-million-dollar startups. Some of them failed, some of them were huge successes. And at the moment, he's working one-on-one with high performers such as NFL players, high-level CEOs, entrepreneurs, and even all the way, out to teenagers and military veterans as well. This one is gonna blow your mind.
Cool, thanks for having me.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy it. Good to have you back.
Thank you.
Straight from Austin?
Straight from, Austin, and then I went over to see my friend Rocco in Waco, Texas, and then my parents in Florida, a mentor in North Carolina, and then now back over here in Europe. So,
dude, your energy has kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah, how so?
And you're, I don't know, just way more calm, like way more present. Just, you can kind of tell sometimes when people are maybe, anxious in the eyes. You can kind of tell by their expressions. I'm not saying you were anxious at all. But what I'm saying is that your face says a lot of things about you. Just your posture in general. I don't know what the hell happened while you were gone. But just out of context, Jeremiah, dude, I think you may have been the most iconic person who has gone through Karisma so far. We have had wonderful people, really great people doing so many incredible things, but it has really been with you, that I feel like I've learned a lot and that the people within the community have also gained so much incredible value.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Seriously.
Yeah, fully receiving that.
I mean, like, just alone the 2 workshops we organized, which were from the workshop perspective, because obviously we also have Connect and Groove, and there we have like almost 100 people showing up. But at least, workshops where we normally had around like 10 people, 20 people. With you, both times they completely sold out. People wanted to come, but we had already sold everything. And they were so incredibly powerful, right? And a lot of the things we covered, or especially you covered, you did all the magic, was about somatics, about how to create an aligned life, how to deal with trauma, and many of these different things. And I'd like to start with the experience you actually went through in Austin. Maybe this is what contributed to your calmness today, and maybe we can also include a little bit of what even is all these things that
Yeah.
we're gonna dive into very deeply.
Yeah, so I actually went back to the U.S. to basically handle my affairs. I wanted to get out of my lease, sell all my belongings. I'm down to like 2 or 3 bags now. Sold my car, sold all my furnishings, and then I went and seen some friends. Went out to see my parents, and then I went up to Judith's house, who was on one of those workshop calls, and so it was actually in North Carolina in her home. I went with my friend Sophie, who was on our workshop call, and one of my closest friends, Josh. And it was a weekend just to get together and really connect with friends. Judith is someone I see as like a grandmother. She's had one of the biggest impacts in my life in terms of clearing old traumatic imprints, balancing the nervous system. And I just wanted to share that experience with two really close friends of mine. And so the intention was to go, just have that connection with her before I moved over to Europe, and to share it with friends. And inside of that, just magical connecting with friends, that just bringing people together, there was a lot of magic that happened. And I'll dive into a little bit if you want, like what happened in her home. So for reference, Judith is an 80-year-old woman. She's been in this world of trauma, nervous system, somatic work for nearly 50 years. And she's an OG of it, was an early pioneer of it. And while we were in her home, she opened up to doing, one-on-one sessions for each of us. And so we would lay down on a flat table that she has, and she would hold these points in the base of the brain called STO. And while she was holding these points, Josh and Sophie would Sophie would have her hands on my chest, holding certain points around the sternum, the heart. Josh would hold on the feet, and then we would actually rotate holding for each other each day. And then Judith, what she does is it's helping you get relaxed and into a parasympathetic state. So like the fight or flight is a sympathetic nervous system state. And while she's holding these points and you're breathing and you're being held on the table, your body down regulates from sympathetic to a parasympathetic state. And parasympathetic state is where all deep healing takes place. So as you move down into that state and your body relaxes, deep things come up from the subconscious, the unconscious part of the brain. And so when she's holding these points are being held, you relax, these things start to surface that have been suppressed, locked down, stored in the nervous system. And all sorts of deeply stored decades of pain, resentment, trauma, things that had happened were coming to the surface. And, I'll speak to my own experience. I don't want to share Josh and Sophie's. That's private to them. However, I can say they each had their own powerful releases and transformations inside of that. And I also had, decades of anger, resentment, things that were stored below that were beyond my conscious view, that were released in that environment. And there were periods where I was convulsing, shaking on the table, like body hunched over, clenched, like screaming, yelling, things coming out. And it was just profound. And after that level of release occurs, I've often been left with this deep experience in my heart just fucking ripping open, and new levels of like presence, calm, because this stuff is just being dispersed from the nervous system, right? And when that energy disperses and releases, there's more space for presence, more space for safety in the body, which increases the vitality, increases cognition, clarity, empathy, compassion, all sorts of things. So I just had, 4 days of that in a world master's home, a true elder. And so, just each time I leave there, usually for about a week after, there's this huge expansion. There's this tenderness to it, but definitely an increased level of presence that you're probably sensing. So,
Whoa. And so she does somatics, right?
yes.
You also kind of a somatics expert, right, in general?
Yeah. Well,
Or at least getting there?
I've trained under Judith to be able to facilitate parts of her methodology with people. And I've done it. I've had people in my home in Austin working them through it. And every once in a while I'll do it with my clients. However, in my personal journey when I work one-on-one with clients. I will do it time to time. However, I like to focus more on the cognitive perspective mind shifts. And when I know people are dealing with traumatic imprints, usually most human beings that are getting on this path, if they've never dealt with it, I like to send them to Judith or one of her top trained practitioners. So it's not my favorite thing to dive into, yet I also let all my clients know I believe it's an absolutely necessary thing if you really want to expand your presence, your safety, the opening of your heart, and really fully resolve the traumatic loops that many people will get stuck in their lives.
Yeah, and so you work with NFL players, high-level CEOs, entrepreneurs.
Special elite operation military members, even teenagers. So I really have been grateful and blessed to work with a huge range of people, from it's celebrities, actors, again, just down to teenagers going to college. So.
And is there anything that they all kind of have in common, right? You see kind of these super elite people, you think they're kind of portray them as gods, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're all just human beings. And that's honestly one of the things I appreciate about you. I feel like you have already gathered so many life experiences, yet whenever you were just around the house, hanging out, inviting people for dinner, or just at the workshops, you were just another one there, just, in general. But going back to the question, do you feel like there's something that all of these people, no matter if very advanced in life or just teenagers, all kind of share in common when it comes to, traumas or things along those lines?
Good question. So what I've seen in working with, let's say, I'm going to say people that made it to the top of their game. So for instance, NFL players, right? That's kind of the peak of the football world, right? And then you have special operations military members. These are the guys that are trained at the most elite level in the United States military, really in the world military. Some of these guys, there's only 200 of them in the total United States military forces. 200 out of, say, we have 2 million troops. And so these guys, they reach it somewhere, right? And and even like these CEOs running, multi-$100 million companies. And the common theme is they're getting to the top of their game, and then they're realizing that wasn't it. It wasn't the thing that they were truly looking for. And when they slow down, well, it's not even they slow down, but when they get there and they see that that's not it, they're still left with this void, this aching in their heart, this hole, this pain. They're then able to slow down a little bit and reflect, almost being forced to, because they're like, okay, there's nowhere else to get to. I'm not getting to that place I thought I was going to get to. And when they do that, it really gets them face to face with the pain that's unresolved, right? So for instance, there's an NFL player I'm working with, and he gets there and he's seeing, hey, my body's beaten up. I'm more reactive. I've got my kids, my health, these things. Like, what's my purpose now? Same thing with this military vet. He's got more purpose, but he's seeing like, wow, I went 20 years, 10 combat deployments, and here's my health. What is it now? I'm still left with all these reactions. And then when we peel it back and working together, underneath there is that childlike self that was traumatized, that didn't deal with that pain, that utilized playing football my whole life or reaching it to the top of the military as a way to avoid dealing with what was underneath, right? And so when we start to work with each other and we peel back, okay, what's been driving this? Oh, my abandonment issues from my dad left when I was 3 months old, or my dad being so hard on me here, my resentment towards, my mother, whatever it is. When we dig under that and find what's driving the behavior and we get in touch, usually with the heart's desires is people want to be a peaceful person. They want to be able to act from their heart. They want to be able to be present with their wife and kids. But yet they've how do I say it? They've neglected those important values and qualities in the chase or the search of some sort of accolade or some sort of achievement. But again, when they've reached that stage, they're realizing that's not it. And here I am left with I'm going to call it a crusty heart. I use like the analogy, the barnacles on the side of a boat, where they've collected all of these barnacles on their heart. And they're realizing, wow, that's not it. What I really want is to be a peaceful, joyful human being that's fulfilled. And I thought I was going to find it in achieving. And so that would be the common theme I see from people, let's say, that have gone and reached it to the top somewhere. CEO, NFL players, military vets, you name it, right? I even seen it in my former business partners, who was one of the top cash poker players in the world. He got there and he realized, wow, I've made all these millions, now what? So that would be that. And then, as far as some, other people I get, let's say that they haven't made it to the top of where they were going, yet they're, let's say, in the midst of a deep depression, or they're on their way there. Maybe they're like a CEO of, I had one guy who was a COO of like this crypto company, and he makes good money, but he's in the midst of some real pain, like some litigation, some legal stuff, right? He's seeing his relationships are challenged. Friend went through suicide. He's dealing with this overwhelming grief and depression while he's on the way of where he thought he was going to get to. And so sometimes it'll be people in the thick of that pain, that grief, that depression, whatever it is, that will wake them up before they keep going and going and going, and realizing that when they get there, it's not it. So it's kind of a mixture of both that I'm seeing is this pattern. If I could sum it up and just all of that, I would say is that there's this cultural, societal, conditioned notion of success that I believe a lot of people get stuck in. And they believe that it's about getting somewhere. It's about they're going to find fulfillment, peace, joy at the end of the rainbow, at the end of this achievement, or at the accolade. And they either get there and find it's not it, or on the way they just find immense amount of pain, and it starts to wake them up. That's the most common pattern I see with about anybody.
I love that you touched on it. I actually wrote it down here, fruits. So if chasing the fruits is so dangerous, what is the better alternative?
Yeah, well, the Bhagavad Gita talks a lot about this. So the Bhagavad Gita is one of the most ancient Indian spiritual texts. A lot of these viewers will probably know of a guy named Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty's huge on Instagram. I don't even know how many millions of followers he has, maybe 10 to 20 million now. Jay Shetty lived with Buddhist monks for a few years. He's probably in his early 30s, like major influencer now. And he was the first person I had ever heard of mention the Bhagavad Gita. He'd studied it, he'd referenced a lot. And over these past 4.5 years, I've had a very close mentor, father type figure that I've worked with. He's an old Indian Canadian man named Anurag, and I'd coached like 70,000 people over these past 30 years. And a lot of the work that he did with me was constantly pointing out to me where my attachments were in life, where I was attached, where I was hooked on trying to get somewhere, or I was seeking to find myself, my worth, my value, my safety, my joy, whatever it was, in some external achievement, relationship, situation. And when I seek to find the source of what I am love, I am joy, I generate peace, I can generate gratitude. When I seek to find the source of which I am and other things, then I create attachment. I'm at the mercy of those things, thinking that I can only experience those great qualities through something else. And so what will happen then is we'll end up starting to manipulate, force things, burn self into the ground, overdo things to try to get something outside of here. And so why I mentioned the Bhagavad Gita to bring it back to it is because this is thousands of years ago this text was written. And one of the things it speaks to is that, I'm paraphrasing here, I can't quote it exactly, but you don't have a right to the rewards. You have a right to current action. And so and it goes into speak that anytime you are focused on the outcome or the rewards, it will basically, paraphrasing in here, end in suffering, misery. That you will create that. When you focus on that, it hooks the mind, and you start to naturally stray and manipulate and force things, rather being in the flow of life. When you're focused on the right action in the moment, what you're up to, the quality of where you're coming from, who you're being, this present moment, and you're tending to that. You're tending to the soil of your life, and then you're letting that grow organically like nature, so much more magic happens. There's so much more ease, grace, and joy in what you do, right? And you will never know where life's going to take you. But as my mentor says, that it's taken me years to really get, is that You never know where you'll end up, but you'll always be at peace when you get there. You're constantly here in the present moment. You're being with what is. You're not trying to force and will your mind and your agenda into existence. And so I always, it's like the great analogy is, it's water the roots, don't chase the fruits. When I mean watering the roots, it's tending to the soil of your life. It's the meditation. It's getting up in the morning and giving yourself quiet space. It's eating the food each day that you're supposed to be eating. It's engaging in the quality relationships. It's choosing honor in every moment of your life. It's staying present. It's focusing on what you have here and now, having gratitude. And it's removing ourselves from that, like, I've got to have this amount of money, or I've got to achieve this, or I'm hooked by this goal, or I got to do this. And if I don't do any of those things, then I can't be peaceful and joyful and happy now. And that's the trap. That's what so much of society has been conditioned to believe, that I've got to do all those things in order to this. And the flip for me, again, tying it with this Bhagavad Gita and this framework of watering the roots, not chasing the fruits, is that I do things now in the present moment, and not in order to get somewhere, just in order to find out what happens. It's just out of curiosity. I'm continuing to create, and I just let it grow organically, and I see where it goes out of curiosity. I'm not attached to anything. I'm not in resistance to life. I'm being with what wants to arise, and I'm tending and nurturing it along the way. So that's my long thing around. Yeah.
Oof, so many routes to go down to.
Yeah. I'll let you take it wherever.
Okay. I mean, I've written them out, so we can always go back to them. But you have started multiple successful businesses, right? You had one of the first poke bowl chains in Dubai.
Yep.
You've had other ventures
I've had
all
a
over the world.
bankruptcy as well, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so how do you apply this attachment that you're talking about, this flow state that you get from living in alignment and truly watering your roots to the business setting?
Okay. So I will give examples of what it looked like when I was doing it, building businesses like conventional retail restaurants, right? So had an idea come, first poke bowl concept in Dubai. Built these first poke bowl restaurants, and it was a lot of like, okay, I wanted to be first to market. I wanted to scale this thing quickly across the country, right? And it was driven a lot from, there was a desire to do it, but that desire was being driven from a fear and an ego-based place. I got to be first to market, because if I'm not first to market, other people will do it and we won't be a success, right? It's a real fear thing. I gotta do this. I gotta grow it quick, because if I don't grow it quick, I won't have the amount of money I think I need to be okay. Fear-based stuff, right? I need to make this much money to win love, achievement, and validation. Real egoic, fear-based stuff. And so driving, it's real, an attachment to what I thought this vision and picture had to be. Because if I didn't get my picture, the vision of what I thought it was supposed to be, then I'm not gonna be okay. Just fear-based driven attachment. And when that was all showing up, then the way I operate and show up with other people becomes lots of tension, stress, strife. Did I make a lot of money in that venture? Did it scale and turn into success? 100%. Did I cause a lot of pain in relationships and business partnerships in my health? 100%, right? And so I sold that venture, and I repeated some of the same patterns, in the US. And eventually those patterns, that deep attachment, caught up to my health, my relationships, and my mind state, and how I operated the business. And driving from that perpetual state of attachment and fear and stress, I ended up going bankrupt. And so, over these past, 3.5, 4 years with my mentor was a lot of looking at that. What does it mean to truly trust and surrender? What does it mean to stop focusing on where I'm getting to and shift and focus on where I'm coming from? Who am I being? What does it look like to just be with the present moment and tend to all areas of my life and make sure that my life is in balance and in harmony? And then only when I'm at peace, creating from a place of peace so that I bring more peace into the world, versus not being at peace, being attached, being filled with unresolved traumas, limiting beliefs and fears, and then bringing more non-peace into the world from creating from that place. So now what it looks like is exactly that which I'm talking about, is how do I create business or create working relationships, revenue, income, whatever you want to, whatever area, right? In let's term of generating income for ourselves, producing, creating something in the world. How do I do that from my heart? How do I do that from a place of peace? Most importantly, what I say is peace is the starting point in my life now. It's the foundation from which I build. I'm not out trying to create. If I know that I'm not at peace or that I'm dysregulated in some sense, that I'm angry or I'm resentful, I've got some major things unresolved in my life, I'm not going out and trying to take a bunch of steps forward and creating something. The first thing I'm doing is making sure all that is tended to, that I feel in balance.
The soil is ready.
Is fertile. And only when that is there, okay, let's take the next step forward. Let's nurture the next thing as it wants to grow. Let's keep watering that soil and letting it grow. And as I've done that, as I've slowed down and really looked at my home environment, you know, my car, my relationships, my taxes.
Everything's connected.
Everything's connected. When I see all of that's in balance, things are clear, resolved, cleaned up. I'm just using a bunch of different language here because it lands different for different people. When all of that's in balance, then I'm like, okay, let me sit down and pump out some creative works. Let me go lead a workshop over here in Barcelona. Let me contribute to my friend's thing. Let me create a new offering over here when I feel I'm in those balanced states. And then inevitably, with anybody in life, things are going to come up, right? Maybe there's some tension over your relationship. Maybe you have maybe you and a partner break up. Maybe you decide to close a certain business venture down. Maybe something happens in your family, right? We tend to those things, and then as you tend to them again, back into the creation state. And all I can say is, as I've operated that way now, when I've made sure that peace is foundational, that I'm at peace before I create, the money that I've made and the opportunities that have come into my life have been of such a higher alignment, have made money with way, way less, if at all, any stress at all, from the heart, with people that I absolutely love playing with, and work that is clearly aligned in my dharma, that I know is here making an impact, that's serving humanity, that's serving the planet, versus from my mind, from places of stress, doing business and things that weren't bettering the planet, oftentimes weren't even bettering other people because I was just stressing them out, trying to get somewhere, trying to get the money, trying to get the thing I needed. So again, just the flip is like, how can I tend to the soil of my life, make sure things are in balance and I'm clearly at peace here, and then bring that to all that I create. So that's my longer answer.
Beautiful answer. Do you even chase money at this point? Like, what's your relationship to money in general?
Yeah, great question. So I am human like anybody else, and I know that one of my I don't like using the word shadow, but one of the challenges that I've had to work through over these 7 years of being on this path is in the relationship to money. And so right now, like, my needs are completely met. Like, I am very fortunate to be in a good financial situation where I can truly only do things from the heart. Now, there are some people that are going to be listening to this, and I want to be sensitive to the different viewers to say, okay, well, what if I don't have my needs right. I don't have my needs met right now, and I'm struggling to provide. You know, to me, the first thing is we've got to be responsible first and foremost for Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, putting a roof over our head, having food on our table. And so oftentimes a human being just has to do what it takes to survive, you know. So I want to make sure that I'm asserting here that most important is to be responsible for getting your basic needs met. And then what I tell people is, once you've got your basic needs met, which means you've got food in your mouth, you've got a roof over your head, you've got some clothes on your back, I believe that anything you make over that can either be in service of others or in service of your ego. And so a human being has a choice, right? Because when you have your needs met, what else do you really need? You know, for my relationship to money is to have enough. And then any other money is like, if I'm utilizing it on myself, it's often so that I can ensure that my health and my wellness, my vitality is up. Because when I'm up, then I can show up better for my family. I can show up better for my friends. I can show up better for my clients. I show up better for my community. So how I relate to money is enough to have my needs met, enough to make sure that my vitality is up, enough that I can contribute back into my communities and projects that I care about, enough that I could do pro bono work for people and support people because I have enough, and that's how I relate to it. I don't believe in hoarding great amounts of money or doing that. I really have taken that a lot on from my mentor. I want to make money that feels in alignment with my heart, my dharma, that's going to serve life, that's going to serve planet, and then it's going to allow me to play at my best. And so that's how I approach it.
So, I mean, I would say I have yet so much work to do when it comes to money. Um, it has changed since last summer. I joined this men's circle, and like one day after the workshop, we all went to go grab some brunch.
Yeah.
I had food waiting for me at home. I didn't really need it, right? But at the same time, I didn't buy anything because I was in a frugal state, right? At the time, I had gotten a loan to finally launch the coliving space. So I was living off of this loan, and I wanted to be responsible. But the reality, and we analyzed it together on the table, is that every time I was spending money, I just felt this resistance, you know? And so I've definitely gotten better at it. I try to feel more abundant and, I don't know, just not be so stuck with that to some extent. But what would you say to entrepreneurs, creators, right, that are getting started on their journey, still maybe have not found that product market fit, the business or the machine is not running yet, and you're not yet financially abundant?
Yeah.
How can you really deal with that to feel abundant even though you still are not really having that financial abundance yet?
Yeah. Well, when you point to that unease in the body, that cringe state, that clenching, right? What I've learned in many years of like exploring the depths of my relationship with money, again, from building multi-million-dollar businesses to also seeing the bottom side of bankruptcy, losing all of my financial wealth, is that money, our relationship to money, is an intense somatic experience. So our relationship to money is energy, right? And a lot of that energy is felt in the body. You know, people have money trauma, you know, things that have happened, scarcity. For instance, I've done a lot of money work in courses, with one-on-one with coaches, and a common theme in some of these programs and coaches is having a human being write out their money story. So this, for anybody that's listening, is money stories going back to the very first memory you can remember around money growing up, and writing out everything that you can remember from childhood till now, just the major things that stick out in your relationship to money, how you think about it, what are your thoughts, what are your beliefs, how does it make you feel, you know, so on and so forth. What are the impactful things that happen along the way? And first, so what you're doing is you're expanding your awareness around money. And the second, so now bringing it back to that little cringe you felt, as you're looking and reading along your story along the way and reflecting on these major inflection points where money was a big topic, right? You know, bankruptcy was a big one. This business venture where I had a lot of reactions in fear and defense when I saw this multi-million-dollar venture created. And I was very controlling and aggressive in a lot of ways. Those were all very somatic experiences. When somatics, just think the body. There was tension, there was fear, and this thing was being like basically coming out of my body. Those feeling states were then driving these dysfunctional behaviors, right? So when a human being, let's say an entrepreneur, they don't have much money or they're struggling there's going to often be a very somatic component. It's going to generate anxiety, it's going to generate fear, it's going to generate worry. And what I would assert now, based on lived experience, is that is what I'd call, like my mentor Judith would say, that's old stuff. That's old stories. Those are old traumatic imprints from something else that's happened when one was younger. So let me give an example. I was maybe 7 years old, and some of the first money conversations that I had heard in my household growing up was watching my father, who was a struggling addict most of his life, dealt with drug addiction, alcohol addiction. We would go over there on the weekends, and my father would often out loud be talking about not knowing if he had enough money to pay for his rent, if he was going to be able to provide for himself. And I remember hearing that as a kid and being like really concerned and fearful for my father, right? It was like painful as a kid to hear that.
For yourself
and
too.
for myself to see my father struggle. What does that mean about me? And, and then I took on that energy. It's all energy, right? And, you hear when our parents are stressed out or worried, like that transfers over to the kids. And so for most of my life, I lived with that deep fear of, will I be able to provide for myself? Really looking out. It showed up in selfish, destructive ways. Greed. And that was a very somatic experience that lived in my body and then showed up in my behaviors. So I'm giving this long story and I'm really broadening people's awareness in this conversation because I don't want you to just, everybody out there, not everybody, but a lot of people out there just trying to help you shift at the perspective of mindset. It's a huge component. That's the main component I work on with people. And I also refer people to be dealing with the somatics in the nervous system, because if you truly want to interrupt these behavior patterns, you want to make more money, you want to feel safe around money no matter how much you have or how little you have, you want to be able to get to balance in your nervous system, to be able to know how to regulate it, to know how to be able to clear the traumatic imprints that are there around money, right? To have a clean money story that you rewrite. Not the one that you first write out, but then you look at it and you start to tell a new story. These are some of the things that I would channel over to new entrepreneurs to start expanding your awareness. You need to understand your story from childhood to now. You also need to understand the emotions and things that are tied to that story, things that have happened in your past. And my challenge to you is work with a somatic therapist, somebody is also really great with the nervous system, to start to uproot those imprints, those impacts that you've had with money from childhood to now. And then as you do that, as you create a new awareness in the mind and a new awareness in the body, when you have that new awareness and you start to tell a new story and you start to tune into the sensations in the body as you're engaging with money, it changes everything. It changes how you feel about it. It changes how you start to spend. You're not spending out of anxiety or fear of this. You're literally slowing down and attuning to.
You also attract more money?
You attract more money.
How does that
You attract new
happen?
opportunities. Well, check it out. If you're calm and relaxed when it comes to money, right? If you, let's say, even if you have $100 in your bank account, man, I've been broke as broke before. and there were periods where I was like in real survival, like angry, greedy, vengeful. But there's also been periods where I've had way less and I've been completely at peace. There's a level of trust. So if I'm at peace, and there's a level of trust in God, source, universe, whatever you want to point to. There's a trust in my abilities because, hey, I've got myself this far. I know I have skills. I know I can go out and make money as I need to, right? I know that I'm taken care of. If there's that trust and peace and an innate sense of okayness, calmness in the body and the nervous system, then what do you think is going to show up as a result of that? Comparative, if I'm fucking angry, resentful, fearful, and anxiety, what do you think shows up in relationship to that? So, if I believe that we are a match for our internal state, our outside is a reflection of the inside. And so
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah. I believe that we are a match for who we are being on the inside. If I'm peaceful, joyful, grateful, then what's going to show up in my life is a match for that. I'm going to experience more peace. I'm going to experience more joy. I'm going to experience more abundant opportunities if I already feel that way. But if I'm angry, resentful, fearful, anxiety, then I'm also going to attract people that way. I'm also going to maybe repel people that are peaceful and joyful because they're going to feel that from me and want to distance themselves. The outside is a reflection of the inside. It starts from and I also say freedom is from the inside out. So if you want more abundance, you want to have more gratitude and joy, then you have to be it. Another great saying that a close friend of mine, a couple weeks ago, it just really flipped something for me. It says, you have to smile in the mirror if you want to smile back. You have to be it first. So I'll say it again, like you have to smile to the mirror if you want to smile back. You have to be it. You have to be abundant. You have to be, even if you're listening to this and you've got 10 euros to your name, the very fact that you're listening to this on your iPhone or your YouTube or whatever you're watching this from, the very fact that you're doing that, and you've got a roof over your head, and you're most likely going to eat tonight, and you've got community around you, the very fact that you have those things is something to be grateful for. It's so hard today to die from starvation or for not having a place to live or go die in the cold. Like, it's fucking, like, it's near impossible. If you're watching this, it's near impossible for you. And so we live as if our lives are threatened, but it's only our lifestyles. But we live as if our life is threatened. And so people are in this irrational, illogical state of fear. And so then they make decisions based on this illogical, irrational state, because your life isn't threatened. It's just your lifestyle. And you're addicted to some picture, addicted to some vision you think it is. But if you lost everything off your back, you had just your phone and just the clothes on your back, you know the next 20 things you do if you wrote them down. And most people, what they do is they'd call a friend, they'd call a family member, and they'd go over there and they'd be overloved and overfed. And they know exactly what they do to get back on their feet. And in 6 to 8 months, even if they lost everything, they would be happier, more joyful, because they let everything that disappeared was usually stuff that wasn't aligned, and they got to start from anew. And so I share that little your life versus your lifestyle being threatened as a framework for people to really get that you're not really under threat. You're not. You have more than enough. You have what you need. If you're listening to this, I almost guarantee you have everything that you need. And so it's first stepping the fuck out of this illusory sense of fear of survival and getting the reality of what you have, because only then, when you come back to balance and peace and gratitude for what is, only then are you truly going to attract the opportunities and money that you want from your heart.
We have it so good, man.
So good.
I launched or quit my job to launch Karisma when Karisma was pretty much still an idea. Like, there was nothing. But what gave me the confidence that everything was going to be all right was the fact that I had made a shit ton of money on crypto.
Yeah.
And so, the idea was at first to build this 25-room co-living building in the south of Portugal. I also had an investor. We were going to build it from scratch. We had an architects already picked out the final two. We were looking at different properties, plots of land. We had moved to Portugal, everything else. And then we realized we were being absolutely crazy. Thank God we did not pull the trigger. It was in the south of Portugal, lost in the middle of nowhere. And so I started doing the retreats, right? I did my first retreat, which was the perfect MVP and the perfect excuse to start building the brand and everything else. And during that time, I was really experiencing for the first time that true nomadic lifestyle. My lifestyle was perfect. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And one of the things I did not want was to move back home. Until during the fourth retreat, I ended up getting fully liquidated because I was too greedy, overly optimistic.
Yeah.
And I remember being there in Morocco and just thinking I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But at the same time, even though I had to move back home after 6 years of living abroad and having amazing experiences and just living an independent lifestyle, I was like, this is it? This is what I have to go back to? In a good way, in a positive way. This is my...
Yeah.
What do you call it? My punishment? The thing I have to go back to?
This is the bottom?
I'm living like a king.
Yeah.
Like a fucking king.
That's it.
And honestly, I'm extremely grateful. And had that not happened, I would have probably not met you. I would have not met so many incredible people I've been fortunate to meet. And I am always someone who tries to make the most of it. And I created 4 principles that I wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
After I lost all my money. It was start saying no to shit I don't want to do. Spend more time in nature, dramatically reduce my alcohol consumption. Especially, it was only a few years after college, and college is just, especially in the US, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one was conquer Barcelona. I had no intentions of going back to Barcelona anytime soon. Yeah. The idea was, whenever whenever I raise my family, I'll just come back, whatever. And 5 months later, opened up the co-living space in Barcelona, and now we have like this community which now has like 160 people.
It's amazing.
And my life, like, I don't even want to like be nomadic now. I just want to be fully here and serving people. Most importantly, the biggest lesson or the biggest thing I've learned about myself in 2022 is that the thing that gives me the most joy is helping people. And that's exactly one of the things you touched on during your workshop, which was when you asked people, how do you feel when you make a positive impact in people's lives, when you're of service? And everybody was just like, it's fucking amazing. And I'd love for you to elaborate on that, because I feel like there was a lot of wisdom, a lot of beauty behind that.
I'll first reflect, when you're talking about this, when let's say, you lost a lot of that wealth and then you really got...
I didn't lose anything.
Yeah, you didn't. Maybe the wealth, right? The crypto stuff.
Yeah,
but just the crypto. That's
dude,
what I said.
And it happened at a moment where, still so young. No employees, no family, no mortgage, no nothing.
And some people would say that they lost everything, and that's why I was making it distinct that you only lost the financial wealth, and you could even say that you didn't lose anything. That it was an investment you made.
For sure.
To see what was truly important, and then you got to figure out what was it perfect for, right? What was the transference of that money into someone else that, made it off of you? What did it teach you? What was it perfect for? And it sounds like you discovered it. It helped you get clear on a set of values. It helped you get clear on creating new community in here. And then, this all came to be, right? Maybe never would have happened. So
never. No, it would have for sure not happened.
So, transferring it, making a difference in someone's life. So, this like inquiry, came from my mentor. He'd asked thousands of people this over the time, and it's, and I'll ask it in one-on-one, I'll ask it with groups, and it's always the same thing. It's just, how does it feel when you make a difference in someone's lives? And nearly everyone has the same response. It's, I feel great, or I feel joyful, it feels amazing, I feel so peaceful, I feel so fulfilled, whatever. It's usually all of the same quality. I have not met one person that I've asked that question to where it's not in one of those answers or energy, right? And so what does that tell me? It tells me that human beings have an eternally reliable method for how to feel fulfilled, amazing, joyful, peaceful, whatever. And so if we know that there's an eternally reliable method for how to feel, then we can assert that when we are sitting around feeling depressed, angry, upset, so on and so forth, that we are actually choosing to feel that way. What do I mean by choosing that? Well, we just said that you know how it feels when you make a difference in someone's life. So if you know that you'll feel that way if you take action, you get the energy off of yourself, your self-indulgence, your self-absorption. When you get it off of just focusing on you, and you put the energy and you take action into making a difference in someone's life, then you know how you're going to feel. And if you know how you're going to feel, then that shows you have a choice. You can choose that, or you can sit around and choose to be miserable and angry and resentful. It's literally a choice. And so I assert that human beings have a choice to live a completely fulfilled life every single day. And why wouldn't we? Right? And why not? Because you actually can do this, and it's a choice. And so when I heard that, I'd heard it enough times over the years, but it wasn't just hearing it. It was seeing a model from my mentor, a man who had served so many people over the decades and who was living this life. And then I started to look at other people that I admired who were being of service. And I'm like, wow, they all have actually incredible lives. And so it was one of the big catalysts for me unhooking from my attachments, my addiction to more, thinking I had to make X amount of money or create this business or achieve this in order to be fulfilled. I was like, no, I actually can do that right here. I can be fulfilled each day. I can be in service. I can be a person that's showing up for other people in my life and just getting it off of me and what I want and what can I give to life. And that flip and really stepping into that fully altered everything. My life became so much more fulfilling. And deep down, I knew that was the truth of what I was here to do. But again, I kept succumbing to fear. Fear I wouldn't make enough. Fear of criticism. What if people don't want what I have to offer? What if they make fun of me? What if this? I was more concerned with protecting myself than actually stepping into that fulfillment. And when I saw that and I stepped into it, everything changed. My health improved, my finances improved, my relationships with people improved, my joy, my peace, my vitality, everything improved. And so, anyone that's listening to this, no matter if you're sitting around, you're angry, you're resentful about something, you're not feeling good about yourself, you're stuck in these loops, I just ask you the same question: is what does it feel like when you make a difference in someone's life? And making a difference is not hard. Being of service is not some far away thing. It's as simple as picking up your phone and reaching out to a friend and just checking in and see how they're doing. Hey, is there I was thinking of you. Is there anything I can do to support you? It could help your neighbor with something. It can be as simple as just being present when somebody's speaking to you and really listening, reflecting back to them that you really hear them, that you're there for them, letting someone know you have their back. These are all little ways that you can start to be of service in the world and getting it off of you and putting the energy out there and how you can show up for others, how you can contribute to life. And guess what? When you contribute to life, you're always contributed back to in some way.
Man, I've never seen so many business opportunities in my life, especially these last few months. Just so many amazing people coming into my life.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. So we're coming to the end of this magical podcast.
Yeah.
And I want to, ask you one last question. It's, you've not always been this person that people look up to.
Yeah.
Right? What is one thing you wish you would have known a little bit earlier? Something you could share maybe to your younger self, maybe someone who's just getting started and trying to figure things out. I don't know, maybe it's an actual lesson, that really changed the direction of your life in general that maybe you can share with others.
Yeah. Just one thing?
Whatever you want.
Okay, I think. I just wrote a post on this. There's a couple. On
Instagram or?
Yeah, I wrote a post on Instagram today regarding this. There's a couple things. One of the. Ooh, it's so hard to sum up for one. There's this thing that boils down to listening to that voice, that whisper that you get, that thing you're supposed to be doing and you're not doing. And really getting in touch with that. And like in any situation, we know what the honorable thing is to do. We know what the right honorable thing to do in that moment is. And oftentimes people are avoiding doing that. They're ignoring it. They're stuffing it down. And so first is learning to honor, act honorably in each moment. Because when you do that, you're always going to be at peace. No matter where you end up, you'll always be at peace. Another key factor that's really supported my growth over the years is having mentorship. Hiring coaches, therapists, taking the money I had, even when it was little at times, and investing it in myself. Every investment that I've made in myself has paid dividends beyond belief. Every investment I've made in myself has come back to me exponentially in my peace, my joy, my vitality, my energy. So finding people that will be willing to be very direct and straight with me.
How do you do it if you don't have any money?
You start somewhere. Even if you're working at a coffee shop and you're living with your parents, right? If you got to pick up overtime hours, you got to pick up 2 jobs, right? When I was younger, I would work multiple jobs at a time. I would be working overtime. So, I started working at age 14 at McDonald's. I was not given handouts from my parents. So, you gotta start where you're at. If that's just buying a book, me getting on this path 7 years ago, when I started really diving into personal development, spirituality, it started from a book. And the book was Untethered Soul, for anyone listening.
Really?
Yeah, Untethered Soul.
All right.
Yeah, and then Power of Now.
Bro, that was mine for me.
Yeah, 2 great books. And those are like $10 to $20. Most people listening to this can afford a book. And that goes, right? Again, it's not trying to force and get somewhere. What can you do right now? What can you do to nurture the soil today with what you have? That's it. You don't have to be thinking about, I gotta get here, It's just like, okay, I've got $20, €20 to my name. I'm gonna buy this one book and I'm gonna read that book 10 times and I'm gonna go practice it. And then watch what starts to show up in your life as a result of that.
Yeah.
Then maybe it's a $600 course. Then maybe it's a $2,000 a month coach. You got to start with where you're at and be very present and thorough and tend to what you have in front of you and let that grow organically like nature. That's what I would really share with people. Mentorship, if you can, find it. You can get mentorship from books. Start honoring the things you know you're supposed to do, and those two will take you far.
And even YouTube, man.
YouTube, yeah. I mean, today there's so much on YouTube, like hours and hours, and so many these videos of great teachers. Like, there's just so much out there, right? There wasn't this stuff 20 years ago when I was like, a teenager. We didn't have all that.
And even just this conversation, which I think is going to add a lot of value to a lot of people.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Man, thank you so much for everything.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
amazing conversation.
So grateful to be on here.
I knew this was just going to be fucking epic. I knew it.
Thanks, brother.
Is there anything else you'd love to share? Is there, a specific place where people can find you?
Yeah.
Something you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm still. I've spent a long time in the making to build out a website, but right now I post a lot of content on Instagram. That's where I engage with a lot of people. People can also book a discovery call with me through there. It's at Jeremiah Dupin. I think I'll put it in the notes.
Sure.
But that's the best way to engage me right now. Let's see what else. Yeah, that's it. Right now I do one-on-ones. I do a lot of group stuff. I do like group classes for other people in different communities. And then again, if people want to work with me one-on-one, they can just reach out, drop me a message there, and I'd be happy to see if we're fit. Yeah, cool. Thank you so much, man, for having me on.
Thank you,
it's been
man.
Great.
Appreciate it.
Cool.
Dope.